Some of them are found alive and with no recollection of what happened. Others are not so lucky, and some other ones seems like they just vanish and they are never found. There are cases from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and there are other more recent cases like the one that I'm going to share with you today that it has a lot of people wondering what really happened to Morgan Heimer. But before I get into today's case, I want to say thank you for joining me today. If you're part of Patreon, the weekend's video is for some reason not letting me put unlisted on YouTube. It goes to a certain time and then it stops. So I got some help and I am going to re-upload it, and it should be ready for you on Wednesday. It could be done by today. I don't know. I just don't want to say that will be done today and then not deliver. I've been having some hard time uploading unlisted videos to YouTube after getting some technical support. Seems like it is something, well, I don't even understand what it is, but all I can say is some kind of glitch, and I don't know what other platform I can upload Patreon content to share there, but it's something that I'm looking into to kind of avoid this and have a plan B in case that something like this happens. But so if you are on Patreon, please be patient with me. I promise I am trying my best, and it should be done soon. So on Wednesday, you'll have the podcast and the extra Patreon exclusive video. I have a couple of dogs around me. They're supposed to be sleeping, but I have one dealing with allergies, and he's Mr. Scratchy, so if there are some cuts, it's just because the scratchy, it's getting loud. He's taking medicine. It should start working soon. But yeah, he's a little sensitive with his skin. If you want to be part of Patreon and get all the extra content available for you there, please check out the link I'm gonna have down below. Go check it out. You can pick whatever tier you're interested in, and that would help a lot. So thank you. Also, if you want to check out content more in my regular voice and you're not into ASMR but you like my channel, stay tuned for Wednesday's content. It's always a podcast. Or you can follow me on iTunes or your Google Play Music, or not sure where, because I have the Stitcher app where I listen to all my podcasts and I love it. And I am going to start to archive some older podcasts to get more room. So there you can get all the extra content. Now that all that is out of the way, let's talk about what happened in Grand Canyon National Park. We have to know a little bit more about Morgan before I explain what happened in the national park. I think it's important to know that some of these cases not swimmers and they disappear in a body of water. They are great hikers and they disappear on a hike. It's fit people that is trained to survive. And in this case, Morgan was born in Cody, Wyoming, which I love Wyoming. I think it's beautiful. I went there a couple of summers ago and I fell in love with the mountains and how green it is. It's just beautiful. At least the area that I went to, I loved. And we kind of had to stay for a while in Wyoming before getting into Utah. But I've heard, because I did an experience and I've read in different places, that Cody, Wyoming is just a very windy place. And it's not one of those places that there's like a constant south wind or southwestern. No, this will come from any direction. And despite the weather, Morgan was an outdoor kind of guy. And he happened to be really good at the activities that he enjoyed outside. And living there, it kind of exposed him to some sports or activities that not all of us try, or maybe are not raised around those activities. And I speak for myself when I say skiing. Where I was born, there was not snow, so there's no skiing. You have to go to Chile or the southern part of Argentina and go into the mountains. And rafting, that's another thing. I know I wasn't even thinking about doing anything like that. But living where he lived and being an outdoorsy kind of guy, he was involved in both of them. And he also was pretty good soccer player. He was so good at those activities that he enjoyed, either coaching or teaching people, training them, whoever was interested in learning more about them. He also had an interest on traveling, okay? And he participated in, I had to look this up because when I read it, I wasn't sure what it meant. But he went into 3 kind of trips with this company, which is called Semesters at Sea. And if you don't know, like I didn't, what Semester at Sea is study abroad program that offer a truly global experience. And they do kind of 2 trips, one in the fall and one in the spring. They go in this something that is called the MV World Odyssey, which I'm assuming is some kind of a cruise, and they go for over 100 days to explore at least 10 countries and 4 continents, allowing their students to get some credits for their Colorado State University. Okay, so it's kind of you get the cultural, which I think that is amazing. I would love for my kids to do that, but I don't think I have kids with a stomach to go, on a cruise. I don't think, but I think it exposes you not only to different countries, but also different people, different cultures, and I assume it brings you back into this, into your own country, being grateful for what you have, especially if you are from United States. Which I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget how easy we have some things that are so hard in other places. And just as an example, this fall 2021, they were hoping, of course it was cancelled, but they were going to go to Europe, Africa, and Asia. So I guess they were doing 3 continents. And it was like 105 days, 13 countries, 14 cities, 3 continents, which would give them, that amazing learning experience. So he was outdoorsy, he was fit, he enjoyed, physical activity. He was kind of a guy that was exposed to all kinds of different people, and I just think that he was a well-rounded person for how young he was. And in the summer of 2015, he was 22 years old. And he was working for this place that it's called Tour West, which sounds like an amazing company. It's a commercial rafting company. And they do, just so you have an idea, they come up with these groups that go rafting in rafting trips of 4 days. And on June 2nd, Morgan was in one of those trips. It was an 8-day trip, and on June 2nd, it was day number 6, so it was almost over. And they were touring the Colorado River in Grand Canyon National Park. Now, this is not only about rafting. This is about giving an outdoor experience for some people that enjoy outdoor activities, maybe riskier activities, and for some people that were getting into it and kind of wanted to get that not one-on-one but more personal connection with your guide for several days and experience if that was for you or not. So that day in particular, they were having fun by jumping off a small cliff off the main river in the mile, I guess the marker was 213 near Pumpkin Springs. Now after they were done with that, Morgan, I think I read that the last person that jumped was at 4 p.m. And after that person came back, the activity was over. Morgan decided to go talk to the lead guide to request some time off that afternoon. And the lead guy was a little busy. He was answering questions from different people, but he went to talk to Morgan when he was and Morgan was telling him that he was going to need the afternoon or the rest of the afternoon off. And the lead guide kind of gets interrupted in this conversation by this other person. So he asked Morgan, just hold on a second. He turned his back on Morgan, and when he was done, Morgan was gone. So he assumed that he was taking his break because they didn't come up with an arrangement of how many hours and more of why he needed so we know that everyone is safe. But Morgan never showed up, so they immediately organized a small search, but they just couldn't find him. By 7:30 p.m., they called the National Park Service and reported Morgan missing. If you're interested, there is even a report online that shows the amount of time, the resources, including money, and they just, you can read the overtime that people, sometimes would start at 7 in the morning and be done by 6 in the afternoon. It's just one of those things that it gives you detail of where they were looking for him. There are some maps and things that show you that it was a very thorough kind of search, and they look in the air from helicopters and on the ground, and super fast. They printed flyers, they talked to everyone at the park, and they searched over 14 miles according to that record along the river, and 4 miles on the shore. Again, this is all public record that's shared. You can just Google it. But they suspected that Morgan fell in the river. But some other people, especially his family, couldn't believe that he, being the experienced swimmer that he was. And by the way, when he disappeared, he was wearing a flotation device. So it didn't make sense that if he indeed fell into the river, maybe he was unconscious, hit his head or something, he would have popped up somewhere, especially knowing that he had that floating device. They looked for about 8 days non-stop until they exhausted their resources and kind of still looked, but not as much as in the beginning. Now, I found a couple of comments on one of the posts, I guess, or articles that I read about this case. And when I started to look into these comments, and I'm gonna leave the link down below to that particular article, but and I'm not gonna read, verbatim what they said, but I'm gonna give you an idea of some of the theories. And when I started to research this, it came back with, yes, this actually happens, and or people believe that happens in this national park. Okay, so this is not a couple of people opinions, I should say. It's the testimony of a lot of hikers and a lot of experts that talk about how easy it is to get lost in Grand Canyon National Park, and how it becomes like a house of mirrors. And it's a very hard to grasp concept for me, but I'm gonna try to explain it the best that I can. One of the experts, hikers, and somebody that, one of the comments said that the Grand Canyon is an ancient and mysterious place full of doorways and entrances to other places that, some people believe that are other worlds or realities. And so sometimes during their walks, they accidentally pass through them and never find their way back. This person said that he spent a lot of time hiking and backpacking in the canyon, and that he had some glimpses of this other doors, I guess, to different realms or whatever you believe there are behind those doors. He said that places and landmarks, they look completely different every time you come back to the same place. The terrain changes and morphs into something similar but still different enough that you can get lost. At night, strange lights flicker on the mesas and cliffs, and this is something that maybe there's a scientific reason for it, but this is something that lots of hikers report. Some other people believe that ghostly figures, are seen. They all agree that the Grand Canyon's beauty and wonder kind of distract you from these unseen dangers that some people have the ability to perceive. And then there was this other comment, and again, I am paraphrasing and I am sharing with you kind of different people talking to the same idea, okay? So it's not exactly what they said, because this is a consensus or kind of a mix of different people's theories. Some people wonder if maybe the rocks and layers of sediment create a type of reflection of glares. Those glares that are reported, that actually are the reason why the areas look completely different. But it depends on where you're standing or your viewpoint. And this is kind of wrapping up the idea that it becomes a house of mirrors. The landscape will always look different every inch you move, creating an illusion that you are an unfamiliar spot, and you may be in a place that you've been there several times before. Maybe that's just the terrain changing and morphing, along with the archways and crevices you can go into with all reflective rocks. Maybe it's just an illusionary and easy way to get lost. So without going into too much detail, I think that the idea of those glares being reported from a lot of people that really don't believe in conspiracy theories or other timelines or other realms, or you know what I mean, it kind of confirms the idea that those glares are there, those lights are there at night. And if you are just hiking, and especially if you're solo hiking, super aware of your, my dog, it's so loud, super aware of your surroundings, just to make sure there are no coyotes near you, or strangers walking past at your camp. I think as a solo backpacker, you're way more aware, and you notice things that sometimes if you're just camping with your family, roasting marshmallows, telling scary stories, making a fire, you might miss these details. But a lot of backpackers notice these small details that tell a bigger story. Do I believe that there is a door that will take me to another timeline on the Grand Canyon National Park? I don't know. I can't say that it's not there. I don't know if they exist. But living in high desert for 20 years, I can tell you that once you get out of the city and you actually start to see, the desert itself, you can go once, you can go twice, or maybe drive by every day to go to work. And then one day you notice something and you're like, how is this even possible? Something forms. It's either, it's not sand, per se, but it's, the dry soil of the desert. It will be forming something, or, the bushes grow on a way, or in a way that forms something very particular, and you're like, well, if I didn't know better, I wouldn't think that this is the same spot I've been driving by for the last 365 days or 10 years. So I can tell you that change happens everywhere. In the desert, it's very easy to get oriented by something like landmarks, rocks, specific bush, something like that. But at the same time, it's if the desert is changing, if the landscape is changing, I'm not even saying only in the desert, but how do we know where we are exactly, and how is it possible? How is it not possible to get lost? Or possibly find something that not everyone has found before? I don't know if I like the idea of thinking about different timelines, but I do know that I get a lot of deja vu that like I know I did that before, but it's impossible because I've never been in this spot at this time of the year with, my daughter at this age for this to have happened before. So those are, and I get a lot of it. I'm not saying every day, but every few months I am. Sometimes, usually happens when I get up from bed and I am doing something, and yes, you have a routine, I guess, but it's not about the routine. It's about something that somebody says to you. Like the other day, my daughter said something to me, not important, but she said something to me that I can't even remember, and I remember being standing in the spot where I was standing, in our place here in Oregon, and there was a series of things that happened that just made me think like, oh my gosh, is it true? I mean, is there something that we don't know, we don't understand? Or is it just that some of us are more, I don't know, we perceive things a different way? I really don't know. I wouldn't want to think that there's somebody like me or me in another timeline. Is it possible that Morgan, being the outdoorsy guy that he was, knew exactly where he was, but then something changed and he entered some place and he is somewhere else now, safe, I guess? Is it possible that, the landscape changed, or, he had him be, or, he was used to this particular area and not this other one, and then he got lost? It's possible. And I also think there are so many spots in the desert and in our national parks that they've never been visited by people. So he could be in a cave somewhere, deceased, which I hope he's not. And we would never find his body just because we think we know so much, but we really don't. What do you think happened to him? I would love to know your perspective. Do you believe in this other timelines? I'm not saying that you believe that there is one, but the possibility of being something. Is it possible that these people that disappear in the wilderness actually walking into something that takes them somewhere else? And that's why we can't really find them. I would love to know your thoughts. Thank you for being